Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
Dire Wolf's somewhere. He was here like a second ago. I don't know where he went. He just disappeared. Dire Wolf was here. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf somewhere. For our weekly news recap from behind enemy line. I was literally just talking to him, guys. I don't know where he went, and then his audio cut out. Dire, blink twice if you need help. Let's see here. So from behind enemy lines, we're on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Alongside me is Dire. Welcome to the show, Dire. Where did you go?
Had some mic issues. Definitely didn't unplug it. So, hey, we have a great show for you today. Sorry about the audio issues. Totally Fox's fault.
Did you just like hit your like microphone and just like pull the cord out?
Imagine the most ridiculous, clumsy move of me jerking something off my table and pulling the cord with it, and it was something like that.
Gotcha. So in the same way that the COVID vaccine is safe, you did not rip the cord out of your microphone.
We also didn't do any clinical studies with cords being plugged out. So,
well, we did do clinical studies. We just didn't publish the results because we didn't like the results.
And the studies we did were only done on 3 mice.
And those studies were paid for by Pfizer.
Exactly. So, as always, we have a great show for you tonight.
We do.
Let's thank our
while Dire's
sponsors.
still alive.
While I'm still alive, slowly dying from collapsed blood vessels. So this show is made possible because of viewers like you. I feel like PBS, you know? Only we don't lie to you guys.
And we also pay taxes.
Yeah, we pay taxes. We would especially like to thank those who donate to us financially, including Kaled, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, who is female, the White Lion, who is a lion, a literal lion using a laptop, and Timberwolf, who is a wolf, and the White Wolf, and also Adder Lupus, and all the wolves. We have a lot of wolves that follow us. I don't know why.
Brought to you by wolves.
Brought to you by wolves. There should be more of us. There's a lot in the military, though. So money isn't the only way you can give to us. You can also help us out a lot by liking, sharing, subscribing, DLive, Twitch. But most of all, especially, please go to Rumble and follow us there.
So, well, I guess to start us off, there's been a lot of questions over the Biden administration term so far. We're almost at the midterms. We're almost at the halfway point. Come on, guys. We can make it. But there's been a lot of questions as to, is Joe Biden really the president? And I think to be more specific, the question is he really the president of these United States? Well, we may have gotten an answer from Joe Biden himself this week with this clip. That's quiet.
Sake. This is the United States of America, for God's sake.
This is the United States, for God's sake.
That's weird. See, I thought the president was the Easter Bunny.
Well, I mean, yes, but Joe Biden's the face of the Easter Bunny.
Because I remember a video of the Easter Bunny ordering the president around. Sorry, the so-called president. So I think we know who's really in charge.
Let's watch that one more time and we'll slow down the tape just to make sure.
This is the United States of America, for God's sake.
The United Gerfag America sake.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
How did he get an F sound in there? He got an F sound inside of America. I am not the best speller. Dyer can attest to that when reading the notes. Dyer's also not only bad at
Fairly
spelling.
bad myself.
Yeah, Dyer's also not only bad at spelling, but also is not courteous enough to use the spell checker.
and add to the dismay is I also have a lot of trouble reading what he wrote wrong and trying to figure out what he said.
Yes.
on the fly.
But all that being said, I do not know how on earth I would spell America with an F.
We're going to be referencing a speech from this week that he also gave, and it's laced with him misspeaking. We're not going to really bring that up, but I just want to point out that he can't give a single statement without making mistakes like that.
Oh, I don't know, Dyer. He was very clear and articulate when he was talking about what a actual terrorist threat to the nation you and I and everybody else who voted for Trump was.
That's true.
He was very articulate when he was talking about that we need to be eliminated, we need to be found by the FBI, we need to be barred from running for office. A lot of his compatriots this week, which we'll get into, were also very clear about the need to kill us, not figuratively, but literally kill us. With arms.
Yes, that was the most articulate thing he said in a long time. But even that speech started off with him stumbling over trying to greet people.
Yeah, I mean, he hadn't gotten to the good part yet, which was,
Exactly.
about declaring 71 million Americans as domestic terrorists.
At least 71 million,
Yes.
probably a lot more.
Yeah, that's true. Some of those boxes got shifted away. And then we have another, very very somber story, funny story to start us off with, and that is CNN's taking a lot on the chin this week, this year. A lot of stuff on their chin. And one person in particular who probably has a lot on his chin is Mr. Don Lemon, who I think is like one of the last original primetime slots for CNN. Not anymore. We had this very sad news this week. Don Lemon is not being demoted. He's merely being transferred out of a very, very lucrative primetime spot. Let's listen.
I was presented with an opportunity that I can't pass up at this network, and we have a new boss who is a morning show impresario. And he wants a morning show that will kick off the editorial direction of the network every single day. And I am honored that he asked me to do it. And for all of those who are out there saying, oh, he moved me and he asked me and I said yes. I could have said no.
You could have said no, and you could have joined Brian Stelter in being the janitor.
They removed him from prime time, the most viewership of the entire channel, and they moved him to a far lower paying, I believe, as well position.
I
Yes,
mean,
it's a demotion.
It's also a slot that like nobody watches.
Yes.
I mean, it's the morning show. There's a lot better morning shows that have been running for a lot longer. I don't know that CNN's going to be picking up viewership because of Don Lemon being on the morning show. I think probably people who were already watching CNN's morning show, which is probably nobody, they will probably continue to, not watch that show.
Let's be honest. The ultimatum was you're going to take a lower position where you're going to be given an opportunity to adjust your rhetoric, or you get fired.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely sounds like somebody justifying to like, let's say like, a guy gets fired or whatever. He's got to go home that night and explain it to his wife. This is what it would sound like. It's not a demotion. I'm not being fired. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make less money.
I will bet you that the management actually told him, you must tell the audience that you're not being demoted for the channel, the company saving face.
It's quite possible. We know that as much as they say that it's not true, we know that CNN executives have real direct control over what their anchors say on air. And so that's entirely likely that that's what happened. Just like, it's funny because we just watched like 2 weeks ago, Brian Stelter and his goodbye, where he said, this is really an opportunity for me to, keep holding the
Clean
media
floors.
accountable. Yeah. Crowder, they have a standing offer for something like $200,000, which is probably like, that's like a fraction, like a small percentage of what Stelter was probably making. But Stephen does have an open offer of $200,000 a year for Brian Stelter to join Louder with Crowder. And they keep doing these skits where they'll have technical difficulties and they'll like switch the camera to like the electrical cabinet, and it's just it's Dave Landau dressed like Brian Stelter nibbling on the cables. It's really funny.
I mean, it'd be a step up for him moving to Louder with Crowder.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like a real news outlet with. I mean, honestly, Crowder probably has as many viewers per day that he's streaming as CNN does during the day.
Oh, I know he does.
Hour by hour, knocks it out of the park, but just overall daily viewership, probably a lot more.
Yeah, so he could actually be more successful if he's, joined the other side, I guess.
I guess. Yeah, Brian's never had that many people watching.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's deserving of it, though. Like, what would really be the benefit for a Crowder to have him?
Yeah.
Other than the laughs.
Now, one thing that this might help with is, if Don Lemon has less money to throw around, maybe he won't be contributing as much to inflation. That's possible.
Yeah, so let's move on to our first story. Story A1. So the Biden praises the strong, in quotations, economy on the same day inflation skyrockets and the stock market crashes.
Oopsies.
Oh. Oopsie. So this week, the Biden held a celebration on the White House lawn in honor of the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, which happened about a month ago. As a reminder, you that act.
An act which was passed entirely on partisan lines, I believe, right?
Yes, it was. So this act did nothing to curb inflation. It's not focused on curbing inflation at all, but instead it included a lot of spending on new Green Deal infrastructure projects and included more taxes, which is how they were justifying the reduction in inflation was taxing, basically. A bipartisan congressional committee found that the bill would raise inflation in the short term by a lot, and in the end, in the long term, have no meaningful reduction of inflation.
Yeah, there's two ways to curb inflation. You can have less government spending, or you can have less consumer spending. The way you get less government spending is by the government not spending as much. The way you get less consumer inflation is by taxing all of the money that the consumers have so that they can't buy anything.
Money.
Yeah, I mean, so when faced with option A and B, the Democrats are like, "Ooh, let's increase taxes because it would just be fascism for the government to not spend as much. It would literally be fascism for the government to reduce its size and not spend as much."
So at the event, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, and Biden all spoke, praising themselves for passing the bill with zero GOP support. I am happy that the GOP did not support this bill. They were very mocking of the GOP for not supporting it. This event was a celebration of Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, as well as Biden's economy in general, praising that it was doing really well. They even had a musical performance and everything. This was a celebration that was very badly timed.
Did you hear about the musical performance, like the specifics of it?
Other than that, it was really not good music, and in the end, he was pushing green policies.
Yeah, so I don't remember what the guy's name was. I guess he's some popular singer that like your parents probably have heard of. I don't know. I don't really care. But apparently, the song that he chose to sing during this event was a song. The lyrics are about suicide and somebody contemplating suicide. That's what the lyrics are about, and that's the song that he chose to sing. I think maybe he was that was a cry for help. Maybe somebody should, 1, learn his name, and then 2, go rescue him.
Yeah, he was probably in duress. So here is a clip from Nancy Pelosi's section where she was talking about the beautifully named bill.
Many friends, what a thrill it is to be here to celebrate this life-changing legislation, making the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation Reduction Act, so beautifully named for all that it does.
Really, Nancy, and what would that be? Because it sure doesn't reduce the inflation.
Yeah, it's kind of like the North Korean Republic, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have a very pretty flag. I'm sure they actually have some very nice buildings there. Their science building is shaped like an atom with like 6 orbitals. It's very pretty. It's just, what's inside of it is nightmares beyond your comprehension.
Exactly. But it's evidence that not everything is what it's called. Often policies are given a name to hide that they are the opposite of what you're saying. But please go on, Nancy Pelosi.
As the name suggests, this landmark law is cutting costs and inflation fighting and driving down costs for kitchen table items for America's working families. Mr. President, many friends, what a
Okay,
And
it's
you
so
can see
funny.
the tweet that goes along with it. Kitchen table items like solar panels, because that's what the Inflation Reduction Act mostly has money for, is solar panels and lithium batteries for rich people's Teslas.
Yes, so the act gives lots of subsidies, government funding for electrical cars and upgrades to your homes for being energy efficient and using renewable energy. It does not help with reducing the cost of fuel, food, any of the things that you use on the daily, and or kitchen table items. And the thing is, it came out on this party about this bill was on the same day that it was the CPI released that we are actually spending a lot more for those items, those kitchen table items. So no, people aren't spending less on those items. They're spending more so that rich people can spend less on their solar panels.
Have you considered just getting a smaller kitchen table, Dyer? Maybe you're the problem. Have you ever considered that? Maybe you're the problem.
Well,
Last week we watched a clip from the Senate floor where one of the Democrat senators says, I know a lot of the guys on the other side of the aisle, they like to fixate on things like gas prices, but I'm worried about, the temperature getting slightly hotter by a fifth of a degree.
Yeah, we have they're telling us we need to buy electric cars when there's not enough electric cars for everyone in the first place. And they're like, well, and we're responding like, hey, I can't pay for gasoline, and you're telling me to buy a $37,000 car.
Yeah, you big dummy. If you were, just be rich, dummy. So stupid. If you were smart like the Democrats, you'd be rich. If you were smart like Nancy and somehow perfectly timed $20 million share or $20 million worth of NVIDIA stock purchases and sales timed exactly with legislation and government regulation coming down. If you were smart like her, you'd probably be rich, Dyer. You only can't afford gas because you big dummy. You big stupid dummy.
I'm
head.
Clearly the problem here.
Yeah.
And they want us to buy they say we now have subsidies for $7,500 for you to go buy an electric car. Yeah, well, that means I'm still buying a $30,000 car and I can't pay $8 for gasoline.
What I want to know is, so now you can do that on used electric vehicles. What I want to know is the dealer. So if I trade in a Tesla for let's say a newer Tesla, does the dealer get a $7,500 credit on purchasing my used Tesla from me, and then the buyer who buys it back from the dealer later on, do they also get a $7,500 credit?
No.
Is it double dipping now?
No, it doesn't work that way.
Are you sure?
I mean,
Now I know that you think that it doesn't work like that because that would just be, awful and corrupt and not very good. But do you know that it doesn't work like that?
Well, other tax credits done on vehicles don't work that way. I guess I didn't check on this specific one, but it'd be insane if it did.
Do you know how tax credits on windmills work? I think we've gone over this on the show before, but I just want to remind the audience. Do you remember that?
I don't remember. No.
So there was a law that was passed that you get to basically write off the entire purchase cost of a windmill, a big wind turbine, and so. There was like a 5-year period that you could do like double depreciation on it, which means that you get tax credit for 20% of the purchase price every year for 5 years. And that's much quicker than what other depreciation timetables are for buying assets. And so normally what happens is, like, let's say like you bought a truck and you're depreciating it over the lifetime of the truck as a company. If you sell that truck, the company that buys it from you can't re-depreciate it at the full price. They have to depreciate it at the price that they bought it from. So what happens with windmills is you basically get to hold the windmill for 5 years, write the entire cost off on your taxes. You can sell it to another company, and unlike regular capital assets, you can restart the depreciation for the full price of the windmill, and the second company that buys it can re-get tax credits on the entire price of the windmill. And so what companies like Goldman Sachs do is they hold a lot of windmills. JP Morgan Chase holds a lot of windmills, and every 5 years they just sell them to each other, and they just keep depreciating them and keep using them as an infinite tax credit. Isn't that awesome?
That is so corrupt and wasteful. It's insanity.
I wish I had a windmill that I could buy to.
I'd sell it to you every 5 years.
Yeah.
So we have more clips. Did you pull up this other video?
I probably could.
Okay, so in this next clip is also, I believe, Nancy Pelosi, and a separate part of her speech. We're starting at 30:36.
Responsible way. Thank you all for making this possible. And important, the law reduces inflation and it reduces the deficit. And as the leader said, it is fully paid for by making the biggest companies and the wealthiest pay their fair share.
You know how you get them to pay their fair share? Get rid of the windmill tax loophole.
Yes. All these green policies created more loopholes for them to make money off of. It doesn't actually remove them. But so let's say, shit, that this is a big win for American workers. It's not. But she also mentioned that they're going to make corporations pay their fair share. And what she means by that is the policy, the Inflation Reduction Act institutes a 15% minimum tax on corporations. So where before, if a large company were to invest a lot of money into the business and take losses, then they would have a credit where they wouldn't have to pay taxes that year because they had lost essentially a lot of money.
And the point of that tax system originally was meant to kind of discourage corporations from saving and hoarding their cash. It was ideal for the tax system to incentivize companies reinvesting their entire income every year back into more things that would, you're reinvesting in America, so you're buying things presumably from American companies, or you're adding more factory lines, creating more jobs for Americans. You're increasing your output, you're increasing your efficiency. The idea was to incentivize companies to reinvest as much of their income as possible into the economy in hopes that would then grow the economy. And that tax scheme worked tremendously well basically since before World War II, as we came out of the Great Depression into World War II and then beyond, where American manufacturing and innovation just, literally went to the moon. It was under that kind of a tax policy that incentivized reinvestment within yourself and disincentivized just hoarding cash like a dragon in a cave somewhere.
Yes. So basically, this policy only applies to billion-dollar companies. So what this could look like is a billion-dollar company is looking at, oh, I could pay $15 million in taxes, or I can buy a new American factory that will employ another 1,000 people, and we'll create another couple thousand construction jobs over the next few years. So that each year they're like, I can basically keep my money and grow my company, or I can pay taxes. And most companies would rather reinvest into themselves and make themselves bigger, more prosperous, and provide more jobs than they would to pay taxes. But that doesn't mean they're not paying taxes. They're still paying their payroll taxes. They're still paying the sales tax. There are still taxes being generated by the company, just not off the company's
direct
profits,
income.
direct income. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's still lots of taxes that come from those companies.
And again, that some of that money's kind of been taxed. So like if I buy, let's say I buy a $100 widget from Direwolf Media, well, I'm going to pay 7.8% sales tax on that. Well, then what? Now you've got to pay 15% income tax on that as well. I mean, that's at a certain point you're really starting to whittle down to pennies after you've spent $1. And this was a way of trying to, at least get around a little bit of that, get through a little bit of that. But there's just this myth, and the Democrats like to push this. Now, I know most of our viewers probably know this already. Like you said, it's not that no taxes are being paid. The idea that Amazon pays zero taxes, which is a common thing, like AOC would say that, that's just not true. Like you said, they pay payroll tax, billions of dollars in payroll tax. They're paying billions of dollars of sales tax when they purchase inventory. There's tax being generated when you purchase the inventory back from them. When you order something from Amazon, you're paying a sales tax on that. There's all kinds of jobs and other stuff that's being built off of that. But there's lots of taxes being generated off of that activity. And decreasing that economic activity is going to decrease the tax base.
Yeah, so will this help out the American worker, as Nancy Pelosi said? No, most likely what this is going to do is result in fewer jobs being generated because companies will be not willing to invest 15% of their income. And then they may also choose, because some companies operate where they are close to their operating budget with the inclusion of them in investing internally, that if they don't have that option, they actually need to reduce the size of their business and reduce jobs. So the likelihood is what this tax will do is slow job growth, could possibly in some sectors result in job losses. It will result in certain factory jobs leaving America or not being encouraged to be developed in America, and could also result in, because of the lack of investment, a lack of development and advancement in tech areas.
This will also create a new avenue through which Democrats can pick winners and losers, or the government in general, whereby in the future you might expect to see some legislation that would say, oh, if you do this, then you get 7% knocked off your income tax, or you get 15% knocked off your income tax, or if you have a corporate board that's all this diversity quota, you don't have to pay your income tax. If you have an ESG score that's at least over 9,000, you don't have to pay your income tax. So this offers a new route by which Democrats can pick winners, which again, based off all those things that the tax will stop companies from doing. If all of a sudden you're a company that doesn't have to pay that because the Democrats favor you, well, you're going to be outracing the competition quite substantially.
Yep, and now we have another clip from, I believe, Biden?
Yes. So 39.
Oh, Kamala, maybe.
Oh boy, Kamala, she's my favorite. What does she got to say? I bet you it's really articulate and not just talking in a circle, saying the same thing over and over and over again. She'd never do that.
The president will speak about the many ways this law will benefit our nation. I'd like to focus on one. For my entire career, whether I was District Attorney of San Francisco, Attorney General of California, or a United States Senator, I've worked alongside so many of the advocates here and leaders to protect our communities from the climate crisis. And in that time, I have seen what we have all seen. For decades, our nation has failed to meet the climate crisis with the urgency it demands. However, today, because of you, members of Congress, state and local officials, labor leaders, climate activists, and community organizers, and because of our president, Joe Biden.
Oh, stop it.
America is leading on climate.
He's so bashful.
Not just with declarations, but with action.
Alrighty. Where'd you go, Dyer?
Did you start on 3904? I think you started later than that.
No, I started on 3904, and then I went past 3932 because I thought you meant 4042. I absolutely started where you told me to start at.
Okay. So what she talks about is in that section.
Yeah, I know. We just played that.
Okay. I must have missed it. So
I didn't hear what you wrote there either, but I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
Let's try a little clip again.
This law will benefit our nation. I'd like to focus on one. For my entire career, whether I was district attorney of San
I don't know. Is that the spot that you were thinking, Dyer?
That's the wrong section, so I'll just go over. She had made the statement that American people had won and that the special interest had lost. Anyway, that's one of the statements was made. So I wanted to go over that because that was a big thing that both Biden and Kamala had said, was that this was a sign that the American government had finally worked for the people, and that they were working against special interests. And an example that they gave was they're allowing the Medicare, I believe it was, to negotiate for prescription costs to reduce the cost of prescriptions. That's fine. That's something that Trump wanted, by the way, that Trump was pushing was for the reduction of prescriptions, and he actually made some steps towards that. However, most of this bill was about taking taxpayer money and funneling into green energy companies. So with green energy subsidies, these are companies that the Democrats are heavily invested in, and it's just a different lobby. It's a different special interest.
Well, and it was to the point where after it passed, liberal mainstream media outlets were reporting that this was a major win for the Green New Deal, green energy, and the healthcare industry, and a bunch of other things that really had nothing to do with inflation reduction. And they were trying to get ahead of the narrative because they knew that this bill that they just passed, even though it was, as Nancy pointed out, so beautifully named the Inflation Reduction Act, it didn't do a whole lot to reduce inflation. It was just about spending and subsidizing other areas of the economy that were Democrat interest groups, basically.
I think it was 49. Yeah, instead of 39.
You want to try 49? Let's try.
Yeah.
Let's do it live.
Further back. There you go.
Day. Exactly 4 weeks ago today, I signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law, a single most important legislation passed in the Congress to combat inflation, and one of the most significant laws in our nation's history, in my view. I said it then, and I'll keep saying it. With this law, the American people won, and special interest lost. Say it again.
Unless your special interest was green energy or healthcare or anything else that the Democrats favored. Unless it was that.
Again, the American people won, and special interest lost.
See, green energy isn't a special interest. It's just an interest.
We just have a special interest in it.
Yes, it's not specially interested. It's especially interesting. It's interesting, especially. I would remind us that Joe Biden is also the president of the United States. For God's sake.
Yeah, so I want to point out
Fadabadoo.
something that happens when you make a government subsidy or a tax credit is now the companies that those affect actually have an incentive to charge you more because they know that you are giving more money to buy their thing. So as an example, both Ford and GM announced that they'll be raising the cost of their electrical vehicles by the same $7,500 amount of money that the Inflation Reduction Act provides in tax credits.
To be fair, the GM was only going to raise it by about, I think it was like 6,700, but that extra like $800 that they didn't charge you is still going to be in the sales tax. So
Yeah. Regardless.
they're not evil completely, Dyer. Nobody's 100% evil.
Right. So, as it creates a perverse incentive where they know they can charge more, just like insurance. They know that it's being subsidized and they know it's going to be covered, so they know they can charge more, so they do. It makes it more expensive.
I mean, in theory, though, that extra money will go to, improve the living conditions of the slave labor that mines lithium. So, I mean,
yeah, I think it was appropriate for this act to be championed by the America's most high-ranking slave owner, Kamala Harris.
Yes, that's true. I wonder how she feels about blood lithium.
Probably a huge fan because
you would think that would make the battery not work as well.
I mean, do you know? Have you ever made a lithium battery?
I have not. Maybe I'm not a lithium batteryologist, so I'm probably not. I'm not a biologist, so I don't know what a battery even is.
Exactly, and maybe there's not enough lithium, so they have to start cutting it with children's blood.
I hear that's potent.
Yep, it's the stem cells.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, one more clip from 5331.
Could have and should have joined us on this bill as well. After all, this bill cut costs for families, help reduce inflation at the kitchen table, because that's what they look at, how much of their monthly bills and how much do they have to pay out for their necessities. And it gave them just a little more breathing room, as my dad would say. This bill will lower the deficit. This bill alone is going to lower the deficit by $300 billion over the next decade because it's going to pay less for prescription drugs. And that's on top of.
Oh, my God. So because you're going to pay less for prescription drugs, it's going to reduce the deficit. Okay.
Are those prescription drugs like the SSRIs that were just debunked last month that are just making people insane and kill themselves? Is it Oxycontin that people are getting addicted to and Vicodin so that they then go try heroin in the street that's being brought over by Joe Biden's illegals? Is it maybe the Alzheimer's medication that was also just debunked, that it was completely fake? The FDA falsified the report. No one's been held accountable for that, but basically the drugs don't work, but they were still approved and still being sold. Is that why maybe prescription prices are out of control? Is because we have prescriptions for, I don't know, things that just aren't real drugs?
So we used to think that the way that the big pharma was making money by was just treating the symptoms and not trying to cure the illness. We thought for a long time that was the gambit. Oh, they're evil.
They're not even treating the symptoms.
Yeah, we thought they're a little bit evil. They're treating our symptoms, making us, survive but never get cured. But no. They weren't even treating the symptoms. They were just giving you placebos, or even sometimes things that were not placebos, just poisons. So no, we were wrong. Big Pharma truly was just evil.
Yeah. You think they're going to come out with a drug for making your blood vessels stop dissolving?
I mean, if they did, it probably would just accelerate it.
And it would also be very expensive.
Yes. Here's $700 for you to slowly die faster. Anyways, so they said that he said that the Americans saw a reduction in inflation at the dinner table. No, we didn't. We saw an increase.
Yeah, I will mind you that the Fox Egg Index, which is very important to me, is still out of control. Egg before Biden took office was 70 cents at Aldi's, and now it is still $1.98, down from a $2.25 a few weeks ago. So I mean, it's a little bit of reduction. But I remember when egg was 70 cents for a dozen eggs. 70 cents, Dyer. How's a fox supposed to get by? I'll have to go back to stealing eggs.
Exactly. So first off, his first statement was completely ridiculously false and shown by the CPI that came out the same day. No, and we're not having a reduction in the things we need to buy. I don't know where he could even gets the gall to say that. And second, he talks about reducing the deficit. No. He spent, and his party spent a ridiculous amount of money, with $2 trillion plus the previous year,
with the help of the Republicans.
Government overspent money. Most of it was completely wasted and went to special interests, by the way, since he's criticizing special interests. He spent $2 trillion on them. Very little of the money went to the people the government actually harmed, who were due some sort of payment in to pay for the damages the government policies caused. Very little went to that. And now he's saying that because we spent less money that we didn't have, that it's a reduction in the deficit. No, you don't get credit for that. You're still spending more than we make.
Yes. Again, so the example being that if something catastrophic happens to your car, and you suddenly have to purchase a new car because you gotta get to work, whatever. So you charge the credit card $5,000 for the down payment this month. You'll pay it later. You get it. It's just an emergency. Similar to COVID, it was an emergency. We had to charge the credit card to get by, and so you charge an extra $5,000 to your credit card this month. Next month, you don't get to go to your wife and be like, oh, well, I reduced our family deficit by $5,000 because I didn't buy a car this month. That means we've got $5,000 extra dollars that we could spend on stuff. I bought, an Xbox and a PlayStation and 30 games and a motorbike for, $4,900, and I reduced the family deficit by $100 in month 2. That's not how that works. Not a joke, folks. No, the deficit reduction needs to be relative to 2019. That seems so obvious, and it's it's dishonest, and it makes a mockery and kind of implies the American people, or at least Biden voters, are not very smart economically, which is probably true.
Might be true.
It probably is true. It used to be, don't insult the voters. Don't say like the voters are stupid. I don't know. I mean, like at this point, I would say that a lot of
maybe his voters are.
Yeah, a lot of things are pretty obvious. I would say that your average Democrat voter is widely uninformed. There was some polls a couple of weeks ago from NBC saying that there was a 25% of Joe Biden voters, 25% of Democrats still believe that the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation. You had a bunch of other things that they believe, which are just not true. They're just not true things. They're factually false. And so your average Democrat voter is ill-informed at best and just not very smart at worst.
Yep. And if they were smart, they wouldn't still be a Biden voter. That is my proposal. So we have one more clip here at also. Let's get to there real quick. Also Biden.
Becomes brighter. The nation is transformed. Look what we already accomplished together. The historic American Rescue Plan has taken us from economic crisis to economic resurgence. Jobs are up. People are back to work. Since we came to office, we've created nearly 10 million jobs, a record for any presidency up to this point. 3.7% unemployment, nearly a 50-year low in this country. More small business credit than any time before in our history. And American manufacturing is coming back. 6,680 manufacturing. Where's it written that says America can't lead in manufacturing?
What was that number? 6,000. 6,000.
Where in this country? More small business credit than any time before in our history. An American manufacturer is coming back. 6,680 manufacturing. Where's it written that says America can't lead in manufacturing? Where is that written?
So one count has.
Why is he
what?
so angry about? Like, who says that America can't do American manufacturing? I mean, that's like a core MAGA tenet. Is
Yeah.
that American manufacturing is supposed to be like where you manufacture stuff at? I mean, I don't know who he's preaching to. I mean, it was the Democrats that were saying manufacturing jobs aren't coming back. You need to learn how to code. Those jobs aren't coming back. Obama said that. Obama said those jobs aren't coming back. Very specifically that those those jobs that were shipped overseas are not coming back. You got to learn how to code. That was Democrat plank policy for the last decade, is that the economy is modernizing. There's no room for manufacturing in a modern economy. We are now a services and digital economy, and you need to, you need to get with the program. I mean, that was what Trump won on. Trump won on saying, we will bring back American manufacturing. I will remember before he was even president, back in late 2015, he went as candidate Trump to, I can't remember. It was a big air conditioning company, and convinced them, I think it might have been Carrier, and convinced them that, he was looking good in the polls. He's like, bring your company back. I'll make sure you guys get tax credits or exemptions or whatever. Bring your stuff back. And they did. Even as candidate Trump, he brought back like 1,000 jobs because Carrier was going to close down a plant here in America. And Trump's whole thing, a big pitch that he had was, we can bring American jobs back. And they were. He had ridiculous tariffs, which a lot of people didn't like, on foreign manufacturing. Aluminum was a big one, reshoring a lot of aluminum manufacturing, and a lot of other automotive things, really, really high tariffs on these things. A trade war with China, to the point where China, and they called uncle on it. They said mercy, mercy, in a story that is always forgotten now because of COVID bursting onto the scene in late January, early February of 2020. In December of 2019, there was a story that China had been buying so much oil from America, because that was the trade deal Trump made with them, is we will reduce tariffs, but you have to buy American oil. And how much American oil? So much American oil, China didn't know where to put it. There was an article in late 2019, December of 2019. China was scrambling to build more tanks because they didn't know where to put all of the oil that Trump had forced them to buy from us. They had tankers sitting offshore for weeks because they had nowhere to unload the oil. China, with almost like 1.5 billion people, so much energy. Trump sold them so much energy, they didn't know what to do with it. That's what the deal was with Trump, was high tariffs. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're bringing American energy production way up, and we're selling it to China. That's what it was. We're bringing the jobs back from China. We're sending the oil back to China. That was what the deal was under Trump. That's what Trump won on. So I don't know where the hell Joe Biden gets off on saying, who's saying that we can't bring back manufacturing to America. You said that. Your administration said that.
Your party.
And the previous administration won by countermanding that message. And we can see over the last 10 years what an absolute failure that messaging and that policy has been. And we got to see for a few short years under Trump what a reversal of that policy brought us. And it was the best numbers of our lives. It was an increase by 50% in the stock market across the board. Just an absolute explosion. Highest savings rates, highest mobility and income. The middle class was growing again. And then, Dr. Fauci released COVID, and that was that. That was the end of that. And then now we're back to, basically, as is Joe Biden's tradition, is plagiarizing other politicians' rhetoric and ideas. And here we have the Democrat Party plagiarizing the best parts of the MAGA agenda at the same time that they are literally calling for the FBI to be rounding up anybody who voted for Trump. And you have multiple Democrat officials calling for, murder, calling for us to be killed. You had which is a story we'll talk about later, but you've got two prominent Democrats calling for literally taking up arms against people who voted for Trump. So, it's a little rich from hearing who's saying that we can't bring back jobs to America. You said that, you fucking asshole.
Also, let's talk about those 10 million jobs he's bragging about. So according to New York Post and a lot of other news sources that are all reporting the government's numbers, the COVID resulted in a loss of 22 million jobs, some of which were regained before Biden took office. But the 10 million that have been scraped back despite his policies still do not reach what we lost. So it's not, you don't get credit for growing our jobs when we're slowly getting back to what we had before we got locked down, and we've also missed out on all the growth that would have happened had we not done those policies. And I remind you, there still are some restrictions in some states in place that are still reducing job growth. And this policy, this Inflation Reduction Act itself is a job-killing policy.
Yeah, bringing it back to kind of a family example is, let's say I have an aunt, not a real person. Let's just say, and let's say that maybe she married a bum, and me and the rest of the family don't really like him. Not that these are real people. And let's say he lost his job and then was just on unemployment for 3 years, being a bum, not looking for a job. When he finally found a job, he doesn't get to throw a party and be excited. Look at me, I created a whole new job for this family. We've got a whole new stream of income. Look at me go. No. You had a job. That was baseline. You then went to negative job when you lost your job. You were simply recovering the baseline expectation of having a job. That's not generating new jobs. That's not creating new things. That's just you getting back to baseline. So, yeah, Joe Biden not even getting back to baseline, essentially finding a new job after being unemployed for 2 years, a new job that makes less than what you made before. It's better than nothing, but it's not back to baseline. And baseline is the metric that we're looking for. The baseline is 2 years ago when you had a job. Baseline is 2 years ago before COVID killed all the jobs. The baseline is not while you were unemployed. The baseline is not while we were in the depths of COVID after your party had forcibly shut down thousands of businesses, and millions of employees just lost their job because you killed their business. That's not the baseline. The baseline is before. The baseline's before, not after.
Do you remember when AOC was criticizing Trump's high job numbers? And she said, "Oh, the job numbers are only high because people are getting 2 jobs."
And that's another thing too. Is under Trump, best numbers of our lives, to put some metrics to that, is we had the highest employment rate in decades. We had the lowest unemployment rate among minorities that we've ever seen. We had the lowest unemployment rate among lower class, lower income people that we've ever seen. We had a dramatic drop of the number of people on food stamps. It wasn't, the Democrats tried to play this off as Trump was kicking people off of food stamps. The truth of it is people were falling off of food stamps because they actually had money and could buy the food themselves. You can't just go on food stamps if you're making money. And there were so many jobs available. And we at one point we had something like 6 million jobs more than there was unemployment people to fill those jobs. It was great for anybody that did have a job. I received substantial raises during the Trump administration. One, I received a raise directly from Trump himself when he cut the taxes, when he sent out the tax reduced income tax rate. That was a direct result of like $200 a week for me. And then my company, because everybody in my industry was scrambling to hire people because there was no one to hire and business was booming. We needed bodies. I got substantial raises to keep myself at that company. You probably did too. Not Dyer though, because he works for the government.
Yep.
Yeah, you probably had your waist just frozen during that time.
Yep.
But everybody who was not Dyer got you were just cranking. Everybody was doing great. It was a golden era for America for that 18 months that it was happening, and then again COVID hit. And so Joe Biden's baseline that he needs to get back to is he's got to get back to the golden era, not back to the time when egg is $2.50 and gas is $5. He needs to get back to when egg was 70 cents and when gas was $1.90 maybe on a bad day. He needs to get back to where we have so many more jobs available than there are people to fill them, and not because half the population died of the COVID vaccine. No, because the business was booming and we just needed more stuff because we were selling things to China finally. Trump had negotiated these trade deals where we were selling energy at record amounts to China and all over the world and forcing our allies to pay their way to defend themselves and ensure world security so that burden wasn't being constantly sucked out of the American taxpayer's pocket. That was what you got to get back to. Getting back to, about halfway there on the jobs, and then way the hell back on prices, inflation all through the roof, way the hell up on taxes. That is, and way the hell up on unemployment, and a complete cessation of the American export industry. That's not back to baseline.
But you don't have to take our word for the economy being bad, because the economy responded on the same day.
It did.
That's your line.
It is it. Where this part?
No, I have a highlighted. Yeah.
This part.
So, what I had highlighted.
Oh, okay. So while Joe Biden was speaking, he decided, I don't know who does his messaging or planning these days, but they're not good at it. So Biden's little party to celebrate the Inflation Reduction Act happened on the same day that the Consumer Price Index was released, which came out at 8.3%. That would be August compared to the previous August, which is worse than the prediction of 8.1% that they had initially thought that it was going to be. It's kind of like the predictions are meaningless. Normally you'd expect if the predictions were like reliable, sometimes they'd be a little bit low, sometimes they'd be a little bit high. Every single time they predict what the CPI is going to be, it's always
do you know where the prediction comes from?
No.
Okay, so no shit. It's just a survey of a certain number of economists economists that they pick. So they have people that are probably Biden supports because they're going to give a more favorable opinion, and he just does a survey of them and what they think, and they just give a number. There's no method to calculate it.
I believe the word that you were searching for was economists. It's like banana.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I found that out, I was reading the articles to research for today's show. That's it. That's where they get the prediction from.
So that doesn't speak very highly of. This isn't really the estimated CPI index. It's the estimated intelligence of economists.
and then we know that AOC got a degree in
she actually did get a degree in economy, not economics, clearly.
No.
Yeah, so let's keep in mind that this is after a full year and then some of inflation. Last August, we saw an inflation of 5.3%, which I believe was I read that out after I had. You remember last year we did a read along chapter from The Creature from Jekyll Island, and in that book, the chapter we read was the nightmare scenario. It was supposed to be a fiction nightmare scenario of what the future would hold if we continued down the path that we were on. And in it, the nightmare scenario was 5% inflation. And I read to you guys, well, we're already at 5.3% inflation. So, maybe some parts of this are coming more true than what we would want it to be. And I remember that. And now we are at 8.3% inflation. Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow. The annual inflation from 2020 was 1.3%. And in 2021, it's 5.3%. And in 2022, it's 8.3%. the inflation rates have not been in the 5% range in the last 20 years, except for 1 year, and that was during the 2008 recession.
But we're not in a recession now, right?
Definitely not.
According to the
Yeah.
Biden administration.
And again, let's go back to the baseline is not last year. The baseline is 2020. The baseline is really 2019. August 2019 till now, I mean, you're probably looking at something like an 18% inflation, realistically. I mean, that's pretty wild.
Well, this thing doesn't even include fuel, by the way.
Yeah, one thing that has decreased is that our August compared year over year of soldiers unnecessarily killed by Joe Biden's policy has gone down by 13. So
true.
There's also that the dead soldier index due to Biden's policy. Thank you, Joe Biden. Everybody clap for that.
Yeah. Now we just have American soldiers not wearing American uniforms, training and working with Ukrainians.
Well, yeah, but we also have Taliban wearing American uniforms and crashing Blackhawks, apparently. Blackhawks that I can't believe that we gave the Taliban Blackhawks and didn't teach them how to fly. It's terrible.
We did teach some of them how to fly.
Oopsies.
That's the bad part. It's like, okay, I don't know if we covered this, but a lot of the military that we were training and working with, as soon as we left, joined the enemy. So the pilots we were training, the soldiers we were training, they're now in the Taliban.
Yes. There was two kinds of Afghani National Guardsmen. There was those that were high on hashish all day, and then there was those that were high on hashish all day and also members of the Taliban.
Exactly, and also raping kids. So in response to the worse than expected inflation numbers, the stock market crashed because they were told 8.1%, and I guess 8.3% spooked them even more.
Yeah, and the picture that's on screen is a bit of a meme somebody made. The thing behind Joe is a market mosaic, which shows the biggest biggest companies in each of these different sectors, and just gives a quick kind of red-green of how that stock's doing for the day. A lot of people use these mosaics just to kind of get a general feel for how the economy's doing. And while it might look like it's all red, because it is, on days that Joe Biden's not speaking, sometimes they're green. So
yeah,
it just so happened that while he was speaking, the stock market crashed.
Yeah, the S&P 500 ended that Tuesday at 4.3%. The Dow Jones had dropped by 3.9%, and the Nasdaq had fallen by 2.2%. And it was an historic drop in the market in general.
And I don't know what the exact number was for crypto, but crypto also crashed out substantially. So thanks, Joe.
From where it was at, it was already bad, but
yeah. Well, it's crypto winter right now, anyways. That would have happened with or without Joe, but actually, I guess it's good for crypto that it was under Joe, because then people will be blaming Trump, I guess, for bad crypto, even though it's just that's where it's supposed to be at right now. Anyways, let's see here. So Joe Biden threw a party to celebrate the Joe Biden economy, and at the same time, well, the economy was not celebrating Joe Biden, that's for sure. Basically, it was burning down around him, and it resembles some of the most insane dystopian propaganda stories and narratives and novels that we've ever seen, both real and fictitious. We laughed at the North Koreans when their president talks about how happy, healthy, and prestigious his people are, when they're clearly...
Prosperous.
What's that?
Prosperous.
What did I say?
Prestigious.
I mean, are they not?
I guess. Just as funny.
I dare you to contradict me on that.
Okay.
That they're happy, healthy, prestigious, and prosperous when they are clearly starving, uneducated, suffering, and not prestigious.
Yes. It's quite funny. So we laugh at countries like that when they are obviously lying and propagandizing, and the people, though they're suffering, just believe that their suffering is actually prosperous, right? And the same thing in Russia, same thing in China. We laugh at those countries, but I mean, look what's happening on our doorstep, right? Our president is telling us that our economy is great when it's clearly on fire. We look so silly.
The economy is going so great that the Army has, I'm sure the other branches are coming to follow. Economy is going so well that the Army has suggested that soldiers should, go on food stamps if they're facing inflation problems. This headline was terribly worded. I had to read it several times to figure out what the hell they were talking about. So, Army suggests soldiers fighting inflation go on food stamps. I think it's talking about just like being crippled by inflation. Like soldiers fighting inflation implies that like, I don't know, like you guys are like doing an op against it or something, but really it's just that you're standing there and getting shot at by inflation. It's kind of very similar to the rules of engagement during the entire Afghanistan war.
Yeah, when I was doing the military, I was told also that the salary you get paid in your first 4 ranks is so low that you qualify for food stamps. And so they were telling me that was something I had a right to if I wanted to. For a while back, I know the Army might just be. There's an article of the Army telling them explicitly now because it's more necessary. People actually might need it. But even back then, I'm like, well, if I'm below the poverty line, but I'm working more than full time, why don't they just pay me enough to not need food stamps?
Well, actually, I also have an answer for that, Dyer. Let's see here. Joe Biden signs $40 billion Ukraine aid as country rules out ceding territory to Russia. Okay.
Oh, so
also,
they're getting the money.
Dyer, that $90 billion of military equipment being sent to the Taliban isn't going to just pay for itself. God, you're so goddamn selfish. You know that. You're just so selfish that, like, I don't know, you wanna have a basic subsistence income for defending the country when the country clearly has other priorities about arming people who hate us. I mean, Dyer, think of the Nazis in the Azov battalion. You're trying to take food right out of their mouths when you're asking for a higher salary. You're taking food right out of the mouths of starving Nazis in Ukraine. Come on, Dyer.
Okay, Fox.
You're better than that.
This is the worst empire collapse ever. There's no bread to go with our circuses.
Well, you gotta stay on the line for the bread, Dyer. This is actually very strange, though. This is a first in history. So there's been a lot of empires that collapsed, all of them. This is the first, though, because normally one of the biggest death knells for an empire is when they can no longer pay their soldiers. Well, America's never really paid the soldiers, so I don't know. That one's a wild card. This empire collapse will be a little bit different because that one's a wild card. You guys are already been indoctrinated that you just don't get paid subsistence living. So when they don't pay you subsistence living, I mean, it's not going to be much of a difference. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, could they pay you less?
I mean, they could. Please don't.
There's like, God, don't ask that question. You'll jinx it.
For the love of God, don't pay us less. Oh, man.
My favorite part is that you guys still get income tax that you pay the federal government.
Yeah, that also doesn't make sense to me.
It's almost like the IRS is a government unto itself. Alrighty, let's move on to the next story, which is...
to a happier tone, hopefully, because this last one was pretty depressing.
Yes, so hospitals on lockdown as first COVID vaccine recipients start eating other patients. No, that's a parody, I'm sorry. A new study conducted by scientists, I think you mean radical right-wing terrorists, Dyer.
They're actually students at Harvard or whatever.
Yeah, so maybe radical left-wing terrorists. And new study conducted by scientists from Harvard and Johns Hopkins, currently in preprint, reveals that COVID-19 vaccines were up to 98 times worse than the virus itself. Oops. The study that used the CDC's own adverse effects reporting database for COVID vaccine ID'd 18 to 98 serious adverse events, including a 1.7 to 3.0 booster associated myocarditis cases in males, and a 1,373 to 3,234 cases of grade greater than 3 reactogenicity, which interferes with daily activities. For everyone, COVID hospitalization. So every time somebody was hospitalized by COVID, there was like 1 to 3 people who had myocarditis, sorry. And for every one person that was hospitalized by COVID, something like 3,000 people had a reaction to the booster or to the COVID vaccine that interfered with their daily activities. Oops.
Holy fuck. This is like, oh, what the fuck?
And I would imagine that some of those COVID hospitalizations are double duty, that they thought it was COVID, but it was really vaccine.
So I had people in my workspace that had gotten the boosters and the vaccine and who had severe adverse effects. And people on my base who mysteriously died from heart conditions that were when they were perfectly healthy and had other adverse effects. So
Dyer's feeling a little under the weather himself right now, so I would really like to not have to do the show by myself every week, Dyer.
So I've been sick for over 10 days now.
He's got long COVID vaccine.
So I do feel like I'm getting better, but I definitely am having some of the effects that you would expect from either COVID or the vaccine.
Do you think that's like the that cancer euphoria where you feel like a lot better right before it gets worse?
Fuck you. Thanks for that. Anyways, so the FDA safety data on the new boosters, just to make this even worse and depressing, revealed that they had not tested the boosters. The new boosters are coming out on humans in clinical trials. They just didn't at all test them on humans. They did test them, however, on 8 mice. 8 of them.
Did those mice survive? It didn't say what the results were.
Yeah, the results are unknown. Only that they were tested on mice, and then nothing else happened.
I mean,
so
mice are like kind of like people, right? I mean, they're just, in all the ways that they're not like people, Other than they're kind of like people.
They're humanized mice, which, by the way, is not furry mice.
They are. Dyer, these mice are similar to you in the way that they also did not have a choice as to whether or not they were getting vaccinated.
And that's where it ends. They are mammals, as are we. We are still see.
They're queasy of needles.
Hey, so but don't have a needle stuck inside them, thank God.
Oh my
so
God.
many of the medical. Okay, should I tell the story?
Maybe later. We're running late.
Many of the medical professionals, many medical professionals that were not silenced during COVID on social media, have come out questioning the safety and necessity of further boosters. I just knocked out my screen. There it is. On
you're just going blind from the vaccine.
Yeah, one eye went out. Jeez. So on May 28th of 2021, the Americans Freedom Law Center, AFLC, filed a federal lawsuit. Civil rights class action lawsuit against President Biden, Twitter, and Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, alleging that Twitter is censoring speech critical of the administration's COVID-19 vaccination policy on behalf of the Biden administration in violation of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So, in a related story to the vaccines now being proven to be dangerous, more dangerous than they said, and less necessary than was proposed, now this lawsuit where a bunch of medical professionals lost their jobs and were silenced is pretty relevant. So this court case is still going through the courts.
Also, not to mention, I mean, like countless people who lost their job, including like tens of thousands of military servicemen who lost their job due to not wanting to forcibly get vaccinated. I was about ready to have to push up against my company right before the Supreme Court said that you weren't allowed to mandate that sort of stuff. But a lot of people faced very real repercussions for this. And there's a lot of people who only got the vaccine because they thought that they had to, and they maybe received some kind of vaccine-related injury from that. And all of that was just, you weren't allowed to talk about it. It was all swept under the rug. You weren't allowed to hear that information. It was illegal, borderline illegal for all intents and purposes to tell your story about it. You couldn't do research on it. You couldn't publish articles about it. You couldn't do any of that stuff. There was no way to report on it.
Hey, honey, we're talking about the vaccine I was forced to take. So I waited as long as I could. I made as many excuses as possible to avoid getting it till the point where basically I had either to get it or get administrative punishment. How do you feel about me being forced to take that vaccine?
I think it's against humanity.
Okay, how do you feel about a recent study showing that for every one COVID hospitalization, there were up to 98 times people coming in with adverse effects or complications related to the vaccine?
How I think about it?
Yeah. Does it piss you off?
It is. I think the people should sue the government, but obviously they cannot do anything because when the vaccine came out, it says you cannot sue the government, so now you're stuck. It's either you're gonna get a serious illness or you die, and bye-bye, past tense.
Okay, but if I do die, you get $400,000. It's okay, right?
That's just you, though.
Oh, that's 1 million.
What? Oh, so you want to make it more? Okay, that's okay. Okay, so
how does she feel about the recent study that suggests that the vaccine weakens your blood vessels to the point where they might fall apart?
So there's another study that showed that the vaccine likely weakens and damages the micro blood vessels in your body. Yeah, and causes them to degrade, which causes organs to malfunction, like the heart. How do you feel about that?
I feel very bad for all the people who take the vaccine. I mean, I still have not gotten the vaccine at all.
And you won't.
And I won't. Nobody would ever force me to get that vaccine, to me or to my kids. I feel very bad for you.
Well, I did it for you, so.
Aww.
She did not do it.
Yeah, she definitely did. But I think it would be far better for me to take care of the family this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate that you sacrifice yourself.
Just trying to get you that $400,000 any way I can.
1 million.
Okay. I should get. She told me I should get another life insurance policy.
I mean,
which makes me think she's gonna kill me.
I mean, realistically, I would think that you'd need substantially more than that, but I'm just advocating for her.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do think for her and the kids and the dogs to have to be taken care of, I probably should have a lot more than $400,000.
I mean, money can't buy you back, but it can buy jet skis and Prada purses.
It could buy a sex doll shaped like me.
It might be able to. You probably have to get that cast before you died, though. All right, so the discovery of this case found that Twitter management was working. So the discovery being the legal process where the people suing can say, hey, you have to give us all the evidence that you're going to use against us in court so we can prepare a defense against it. That's what discovery is. Found that Twitter management was working directly with the Biden administration. Emails show the Biden administration telling Twitter to censor specific stories and specific accounts, and Twitter followed their directions willingly. And I believe even at some time reaching out saying, "Hey, do you want us? Do you want us to help you out here? We can do more. You asked us to do this, but we can do even more for you." The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a controversial Texas law that restricts companies' abilities to remove users or violate content on Friday, or violative content on Friday. The court's decision lifts a previous injunction put in place by the Supreme Court, allowing the embattled law to go into effect.
So this, to be clarify, this is a few different stories. There was first the class action lawsuit of doctors suing the government. Then we have the discovery from that case resulting in evidence that the Biden administration was directly directing the censorship of individuals and stories. And now another story is a separate court case. This is a appeals court. Appeals court has ruled on a Texas law that had been challenged in court, and the Texas law would have given an avenue for people who had been censored to sue a social media company, and also put a lot of regulatory requirements on those social media companies to be clear about what is permitted, and that they could not restrict things that are political speech, but only things that are criminal, or required an ease of reporting for criminal content, and also that requires them to hold on to content that had been reported for removal, so that someone could challenge its removal later on. So a quote we have was today we reject the idea that corporations have, it is from the lawyer on the side of the state. Today we reject the idea that the corporations have a freewheeling First Amendment right to censor what people say. Because the district court held otherwise, we reverse its injunction and remand it for further proceedings, the court said in its decision. So that's what the court said. So they're saying that the Texas law can be in effect, and that we do have recourse against social media companies that censor you for political opinions.
Well, that's good. It's almost like, I don't know, we have a legal system that defends our rights here.
Occasionally, in Texas at least.
Sometimes. The Texas law in question prohibits social media companies' ability to silence viewpoints on their platforms and allow users who were wrongly censored to seek recourse. The law HB 20 establishes such companies are best classified as common carriers, like phone companies and cable providers, that are barred by government regulators from discriminating against customers, which is good because this would then provide further evidence for there to be a similar policy on the national level, because now there's the precedent in the state courts. And when arguing for such a regulation at the federal level, this can now be cited as, hey, this is how other legal entities are categorizing Twitter and social media, and this is how the federal government should do it as well.
Yep.
Alrighty.
So a little bit of hope.
A little bit. It'll be right before the total collapse, before the lights go out and the feds come knock on your door. We will get our Twitter freedom right before they shut down the internet. Alrighty. Okay, so we have another story about a case of some hot tamales this week.
Illegal ones.
Illegal hot tamales, as Jill Biden might call them. So a few months ago, we got to go all the way back a few months ago to really get the feeling of the story here. A few months ago, Texas and Arizona governors began shipping bus loads of illegal immigrants to Democrat stronghold cities like New York, D.C., and Chicago. The number of illegals moved in this way numbered in the thousands, just a small fraction of the nearly 4 million tracked illegals that have crossed the border since Joe Biden took office, and then an even smaller fraction of the estimated 5 to 6 million total illegals if you also include the ones that were never tracked, the gotaways, as it were.
Correct. There's a hell of a lot of them. At the time we originally reported this, we said it was a bit gimmicky and that Arizona and Texas would be better off just deploying their National Guard to protect their border and using their sheriffs to arrest ICE and CBP officers for human trafficking where appropriate. Though I guess we saw that their National Guard weren't very effective.
Yeah. I mean, they could always be ordered to be more effective. Alrighty.
That's true.
We still think these things, but this week, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida joined the fray and caused a minor apocalypse on the Democrat island of Martha's Vineyard.
Which was at least funny.
Yes. When he flew 50 illegal immigrants on private planes to the Blue City stronghold.
Willingly. They signed documents to that effect. So
Yes.
at the same time, Governor Abbott of Texas, dropped a few busloads of illegals outside the Naval Observatory in D.C., which is the traditional residence of the vice president, currently Kamala Harris, supposedly. Kamala, as you may know, was appointed by Joe to be in charge of the border. In her own words, here is how that is going.
Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have.
Would you call the border secure?
Trying to get this a little louder.
I think that there is no question.
Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made. Pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship. The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border's secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
So we have a secure border because we have to, define it as a secure border. Like in the sense that we're supposed to have a secure border, we have a secure border. In the sense that it's like literally secure, we'd have to pass a bill or something,
Okay, would you, if you had a secure border, need to pass a pathway to citizenship for all the illegals inside your country?
No, because they wouldn't be here.
Right.
I want to go back to that first part, and I want to try to dissect what she said here. Let's see if we can go through this line by line.
Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress.
All right, so there's so is the border secure? There's no question that we have to do what the president and I asked. I'm lost. I'm lost already. I think she's saying that it's obvious that I would have to do what the president asked me to do, which I think
it's
was
not
implied.
actually answering the question.
Yeah, that's very clear. I'm just trying to figure out what the hell she's even saying beyond not answering the question.
I think she's trying to say that, the border is secure, but be more secure if we did this thing that actually has nothing to do with border security.
I think she's actually saying it's obvious that I'm supposed to be doing my job.
But the first request we made. Pass a bill.
Bill.
Wait. She didn't sound like she was sure about that.
Yeah. Why is she nodding so much? I mean, is she getting stage managed? I know somebody in the back with a cue card. They're furiously writing as fast as they can. What does she mean that she doesn't know what comes after the word we have to pass? That she was in Congress she was in Congress for 4 years. How does she not know that the next word's bill?
Why does she sound like she's always making up what she's saying on the spot?
Because she is.
But shouldn't everything she's talking about be a well-practiced talking point?
Well, this kind of goes into a side story, which we've covered a few weeks ago, is Kamala has an unprecedented level of staff turnover because she's impossible to work with. Probably because she has staffers saying, "Hey there, Kamala, you're a little weak in interviews and on improv when we talk about these issues. Maybe we should practice." And then she goes, "Don't you know I'm a black Indian woman of color person who owns slaves and whose grandparents owned slaves in Jamaica? Don't you know that? How dare you?" And then
every politician has a team that has them practice and they have adversaries come in for debate practice even, but they have them practice responses to questions, and they have these pre-made responses that if you ask them a question that is not directly answered by one of their pre-canned responses, they'll give a canned response that is similar because to be safe, they go to the circle of safety, which is I know I can say this phrase It's been vetted to be politically safe for me to say this thing. It's the official messaging. And then while they're saying that, they might come back to actually answering the question. That's a tactic they use. You occasionally will see a politician get asked a question they weren't expecting by a news anchor, and they'll start talking about something unrelated, but come back to and kind of answer the question. Or if they didn't have a good answer, they'll stick with the circle of safety, right?
See, normally Kamala would just default to sucking his dick, but that doesn't play very well on primetime, so they had to go with this was Plan B.
Yes.
Not a good Plan B.
See, she obviously doesn't do any preparation, and this might be because she's lazy and stupid. I don't know.
Yes. Okay. So, trying to fact check whether or not I guess the punchline for this was she said twice the border's secure, with a lot of caveats to that. Fact checking whether or not the border is secure, Fox News interviewed some immigrants that were dropped outside of Kamala Harris's house.
And Vice President Harris said that the border is closed. Is the border closed? Do you believe that the border is closed, or is it open?
It's open, not closed. The border is open.
The border is open. Do you believe that all the migrants believe that the border is open?
Yeah, everybody believes that the border is open. It's open because we enter, we come in, free, no problem.
But it's open for you to come illegally, right?
Illegally, yes, illegally. That's true.
And you came illegally.
Yeah, we came illegally, not legal.
Well, from the mouth of babes there, I would say the fact check on Kamala Harris as to whether or not the border is secure is the illegal immigrant outside of her house saying that it's not. Fact check false.
So this whole sending immigrants to Democrat houses, politicians' houses, basically, it is a gimmick, right? But what I think that they're doing is they're creating some very ironclad sound bites for their later campaigns against these Democrats.
Yeah, and those campaigns will surely be effective with 5 million extra illegal immigrants voting in the next election. I
didn't say it'd be effective, but that is what their strategy is right now. Because they're going to be here regardless, right? So they're using them.
Well, they don't have to be here regardless. There are solutions.
Okay, there are solutions, but without them being willing to do anything else more drastic, they're here regardless.
Yeah. So that was a sight outside of Kamala Harris's house in D.C. this week. Back to Martha's Vineyard, the situation was getting pretty dire.
So, what are the most difficult challenges right now? The difficult challenges are we have, at some point in time, they have to move from here to somewhere else, right? We don't have the services to take care of 50 immigrants, and we certainly don't have housing. We're in a housing crisis as we are on this island.
Not true.
So we can't house everyone here that lives here and works here. We don't have housing.
They don't have houses for people that live there? Then they probably don't live there.
They have more than 50 B&Bs that were open.
They had several hundred Airbnbs open and available, and Martha's Vineyard is a seasonal location, and it's the end of the season. There's something like 100,000 residents of Martha's Vineyard that only live there during the summer months, and we're getting to the end of summer, and a lot of those houses are standing vacant.
Yeah, and even on those properties, like Obama has 30 acres, there's a lot of open buildings on that property that aren't the main house. So there's lots of places these illegals could live, and there's no shortage of millionaires and billionaires that live there that couldn't support them. The community definitely is wealthy enough to support these 50. And if they can't support 50, how do they expect a equally small community on the border of Texas to take care of 30,000?
Yeah, and there's precedent for the government purchasing large blocks of hotels, large blocks of Airbnbs and rental properties.
House.
Possibly Dyer's house, and just offloading illegal immigrants and to go live in those properties and destroy them. I'm sure yours is fine, Dyer.
Thanks.
I'm sure it's not destroyed.
I requested a site survey of pictures, just so you know.
And I'm sure that they will redate
have-
and timestamp the pictures they had on the initial walkthrough.
They have not responded yet.
I bet they haven't. And so, I mean, there's precedent for that. And Martha's Vineyard is a rather wealthy place. Again, your average home price there is going to be in the several millions. We're talking about possibly tens of thousands of dollars per square foot on average. So, I mean, the property tax alone in that location is more than enough to support 50 illegal freeloaders. But no, they'd rather send them off to literally anywhere else. So we'll get some clips that kind of go through some of the alternative locations and what their resources are like. But just so you know, the initial panic in Martha's Vineyard right off the bat is, well, we don't have the resources. I mean, by gosh, we're only millionaires here. I mean, not like we're the billionaires. You know, they don't even live in America. So it's, you know, it's hard. It's hard out there for a working millionaire.
Oh my God. Not enough services or housing, they say. Well, tell that to places to like El Paso that are experiencing an influx of nearly 2,000 illegals per a day. In Texas alone, it's 7,000 a day. Or the rural towns all over red state America where the Biden administration has been flying illegals by the thousands, just dropping them off and letting them wander into random rural communities. They've been flying, particularly one location was, they've been flying them into Florida. Florida not being a border state, not on the border with Mexico, but receives a large amount of them because they're flown in the middle of the night by Biden. So then for the Biden administration, Democrats say, hey, you can't fly illegal aliens out of your state into other states. Like, we didn't do it first. If it's legal for Biden to do it, then it's legal for us to do it. This was confirmed by several fact checkers, by the way. The fact checkers said that it was false of the GOP to characterize the flights as secret when they were, in fact, a routine part of the immigration system under Joe. So it's not a secret.
Yeah, so that was the fact check from a few months ago and late last year was, well, the Republicans said, hey, you guys are doing secret flights, and I said, fact check false. The flights were not secret; they were publicly acknowledged. So
yeah,
they got us. Oh gosh,
got us. So these flights too were also not secret.
They weren't. And one of the funny things is that DeSantis was some of the criticism was that he had hired a documentarian to fly on the private jets with the illegal immigrants and had notified Fox News so that they could be there with a camera crew at Martha's Vineyard upon the landing of the illegal immigrants. And this is somehow supposed to imply nefariousness, where I would think that, you know, it'd be more nefarious to try to hide what was going on. DeSantis was, and all of that stuff would be FOIA-able if requested, because it's all state. It'd be all Florida state created content, government generated content, which would be Freedom of Information Act. You could request that if you wanted, or they're probably going to end up publishing it relatively quickly here. But if he was really doing something untoward, something Hitlerian, as will be discussed here in a bit, do you really think he'd be documenting it so thoroughly?
No, absolutely not. In fact, this is preparation for responding to the lies, because he knew that the Democrats would then interview the people that were sent there and create a narrative to lie about them being misled. Whereas because they have well-documented video, signed documents, a person going along with them to observe everything that happened, they're able to say, no, we have loads of evidence. These people were ecstatic to go. They knew where they were going, and that they have a ironclad argument against the lies and possible legal case in the future if those states or cities try suing Florida, saying that these people were mistreated, they'll have evidence to the contrary.
Yeah. So within a day, Martha's Vineyard declared a humanitarian crisis. By Dyer's wife, Martha's Vineyard Twitter. I guess this is their tourism board, tweeted this out for immediate release. Martha's Vineyard humanitarian response, basically indicating this is an emergency management issue, and talked about all the things that they're going to do, but that they are essentially declaring this a humanitarian crisis. an emergency. Yes. Here. So this down here at 1500 today, approximately 50 individuals, to the best of our knowledge, originating from Venezuela, landed in the Martha's Vineyard airport seeking shelter. This is an ongoing situation. Town emergency management operations from the 6 island towns on the sheriff's office, as well as the county management, are actively collaborating to develop a coordinated regional response. Ooh, 50 people, and it's a disaster. My goodness.
Yeah, some cities have more than that with hungry homeless on the streets.
Yes.
By some, I mean many. So the fact that they're struggling with 50 is crazy.
I mean, one of the things that was most shocking for your average Martha's Vineyard resident was probably seeing someone with dark skin not cleaning their pool. Typically, that's their interactions with these people, and so it's kind of shocking to see him like walking out and about on the sidewalk. I would imagine.
Someone give that guy a weed eater. He needs to be working. Does anyone have a lawnmower, please?
Like, don't they know it's off season? We don't need more pool cleaners.
If they're not wearing gardening gloves, they're basically naked.
Yes. Presumably, this declaration of a humanitarian crisis was in response to the poor treatment that the 50 illegal immigrants received from the Democrats on the island. 200,000 illegal immigrants a month into border towns, and just 50 into Martha's Vineyard over 2 days, in one of the richest areas of the country, completely brought it to its knees. Other Democrat cities also joined in to declare their own crises throughout the last month or so. So in D.C., let's see here, Mayor Muriel Bowser had this to say.
The migrants being dropped off here will make the Biden administration see it more clearly, since it's where they live too?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they understand and see the situation clearly. But all the lawmakers here and the lawmakers at home in their homes in Texas or Arizona, they need to understand that we need a system, an immigration system that works, that's fair at the border, but also is dealing with the millions of people who live here who need a pathway to.
Yeah, so she says, I think that I think the lawmakers in D.C. understand the problem with having so many people come through the border, but I really think that Texas and Arizona, they need to understand we need to have a better system for importing more people en masse and turning them into citizens. Don't you get that? So I would say that the answer is no. I don't think that the people in D.C. understand the problem, and
they don't see it as a problem. They see it as a gift. Remember.
Yes, they should anyways. Let's see here. So from Chicago, trigger warning, apologies. This is a video of Mayor Lori Lightfoot. So if you have any children in the room, please have them avert their eyes for the next 50 seconds. Don't want to give them nightmares.
She averts her eyes from each other.
The government has to step up.
Oh my God. She kind of looks like new Ariel.
Because
new Ariel's eyes are really far apart.
Yeah.
Everybody was making a big deal about what race she was. I didn't really care about that. I just like her eyes were uncomfortably far apart.
The federal government has to step up. I was in Washington, D.C. last week talking to members of Customs and Border Patrol, National FEMA, ICE, and DHS. And we made it very clear, I made it very clear, that our expectation is that they were going to have a plan that features communication and collaboration with interior cities. And they must do that, and they must do that soon. I know that they are under enormous pressures. This is not a new challenge at the border, but this is a new challenge for us, and we need federal support.
I know it's not a new challenge for border cities, but because it's a new challenge for Chicago, well, CBP better get their act together. Border Patrol better get their act together. The federal government better get its freaking act together. You better, because it's a problem for us now. We're vote Democrat. Come on, guys. Come on.
Ridiculous. And they were freaking out about, was it
Chicago had something like 7,000 over the last 6 months from
ridiculous.
Arizona and Texas, and then New York's had something like 11,000 over the last 6 months from Texas and Arizona. And
maybe they shouldn't have defunded their police,
maybe, or maybe they should stop voting for this policy. And again, you keep hearing the issue isn't that they're coming over the border. The issue is that they're ending up in these cities. Like that's not the issue. Is not that they're coming over the border. The issue is they're coming to places where Democrats live. Oh no.
So Thunder Erican, by the way, said that she's glad that we're back to streaming. Yeah, sorry, we've had a record number of days off in the last couple months, haven't we?
Yeah, well, it's like mostly your fault.
Yeah. Well, sick and family stuff going on. TDY.
Vacation.
Thanks. But yeah, we're glad to be back and glad to be doing these shows again on a mostly regular basis.
We've been doing not too bad. Sometime between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. We've been hitting that pretty good. Usually about 3 p.m. Eastern. That's the target time. For now.
That's how it is when it's your hobby and not like your job,
Yeah. We're not paying 15%. Are we gonna have to pay 15% to Joe now?
No, we didn't hit the tax point.
If you want us to pay taxes, then you have to donate more.
If you donate more, we will reach the quarterly reporting.
Yeah, should we make a funding bar that's like the progress to making Dyer have to fill out an additional tax form?
Yeah, that'd be funny. But it'd also be kind of depressing.
Make Dyer pay taxes. Yeah, that's the best way. If you really don't like this show, just give us lots of money, and then Dyer has to fill out a tax form. That's the best way to get him back. So Chicago is also at the same time that their mayor's saying this. They're actually doing stuff on their own. They're putting migrants back onto buses and
without their permission,
and sending them out into the Chicago suburbs for them to deal with. Which, if you understand how the Chicago suburbs work, they're basically just like towns that are around Chicago. It's just Chicago's so big, it kind of encompasses a lot of additional region. But yeah, they're sending them to places that aren't Chicago, so that they can deal with them, because it's not fair that they went to Chicago. It's more fair that they go somewhere else. And most of the rest of the state is red, so I would imagine just about anywhere Chicago can send those people, they're gonna either keep it purple or make it blue.
Yeah. So it's basically they're saying, well, it's just not. They can't be our problem. They gotta be someone else's problem. And what was the was CNN that had a journalist that likened the migrants, the illegal aliens, to being trash?
We'll get to that.
Okay, sorry. So New York Mayor Eric Adams said that 11,000 migrants had arrived since May. The city says many of them were sent on buses by Governor Greg Abbott from Texas. That he has pushed this. That this has pushed the city to its breaking point. 11,000 migrants since May, 6 months, has brought the city to its breaking point. Geez, a city of 25,000 residents received 30,000 migrants, more than doubling its population in Texas, and that is okay with them.
Yeah, and New York, something like 8 million, can't handle 11,000 people.
8 million.
And back to Martha's Vineyard. Did you really think that they would just keep them? Did you think that did you and DeSantis, did you really think that the bluest island in existence was just going to keep a bunch of illegal migrants who weren't cleaning their pools? Of course not. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker, who's a Republican, oust that guy, recall him immediately, activated the National Guard, 125 National Guardsmen to, quote, take care of the illegal immigrants on the island. 125 National Guard to take care of 50 illegal immigrants. by God. And the way that they're taking care of them is by transporting them, not by their choice, to Joint Military Base Cape Cod. Joint Base Cape Cod is not exactly in a red area, but in 2020, the county that it resides in only went to Biden by about a 10-point spread. So, of course, they're going to send it to a purplish area, consume military resources, and get them the hell out of a Democrat stronghold. Of course they weren't going to keep them there. It was less than 2 days. It was 44 hours of illegal immigrant residence, and they activated the military immediately and got them deported to a military base, a camp even, if you will. And you know, did you think that they would just keep them? Did you think that, DeSantis? No, of course not. Let's see here. So
sounds
DC,
like a giant security risk, by the way, because these people haven't been like vetted for safety.
Exactly.
And they're on a military base.
DC has plans on sending the illegals they just got back to Florida as well. And as we heard, Chicago and New York are looking at similar things. Just as many of the destinations the Biden administration's planes flew illegals to, they were also red or purple. And so, of course, if the red state governors start shipping them to Democrat cities, well, of course they're just going to send them back out into red and purple areas. Of course they are. Did you think? And that's why this is a gimmick. That's why this is just a gimmick. It's not actually going to do anything. You're not actually going to change the hearts and minds of the Democrats. They aren't hypocrites. They're just authoritarians. This is not this is not living up to their own standards. They have different standards. It's a caste system now. They are more equal than you are. They abide by a different set of rules and laws. And how dare you, a peasant, even think and consider for a moment that they should have to live under the same laws and regulations that you do? Of course they don't. It's not hypocrisy. It's a caste system, you pleb. Get the hell back to the cornfields. All right.
Yep.
So, here are some reactions to the events this week. Tucker had a rather fiery segment about it. Let's see. He did. Let's see if I can find.
Isn't South exactly spent the day interviewed? Spent the day.
Alrighty. So, was this literally the Holocaust? And now you might think that when I just told you that Massachusetts activated 2.1 or 2.25 soldiers per illegal immigrant to forcibly take them to a military base, you would think that the Holocaust reference might be to that. You'd be wrong.
Interviewing people connected in some way to Martha's Vineyard. Turns out that precisely none of them were excited about the plane load of Venezuelans. One of them, the state rep for the island, even blamed this show for the sudden blessed surge in diversity. Watch this.
Ron DeSantis and Republicans might want to play political games with people's lives. I believe that's incredibly inhumane to be using women and children and families as a political pawn that you can then talk about on Tucker Carlson and pretend to be tough on immigration.
Wow. So see if you can follow the argument here. When penniless illegal aliens show up in Brownsville, Texas, one of the poorest cities in the United States, they are noble strivers. They're looking for a better life in this country, and we applaud them. Good luck in Brownsville, newly arrived immigrants. But when these very same people jump the moat and get a free flight to Martha's Vineyard, it's something else entirely. It is, as the state rep just told you, quote, playing political games with people's lives, because it's dangerous. These immigrants could wander into a clam bake by accident, or worse, much worse. Earlier today, CNN...
All right, so we also had this clip, which a little forward here.
And many will believe him. So this morning, Burns played the role of Holocaust expert on CNN. And you know what Ken Burns has discovered? Ken Burns has discovered that Ron DeSantis sending illegal aliens to Martha's Vineyard is pretty much exactly what Hitler did. Pretty much exactly. Watch this.
All of your documentaries are about history.
Yeah.
But all of them also make you think about where we are now. And we woke up to the news this morning that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida sent 2 plane loads of migrants to Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts, including kids and whatnot. And I'm not saying this is not a one-for-one. This is not a parallel here in any way. But it does address some of the same themes.
This is the coming straight out of the authoritarian playbook. This is what's so disturbing about DeSantis, is to use human beings, to weaponize human beings for a political purpose.
Yeah, so it's Hitlerian. It's the Holocaust, which, by the way, the documentary that guy just released about the Holocaust, it was about how America caused the Holocaust. You know, the guys that ended it. That's what he just released. So he's definitely a historical revisionist, very unclear thinker, if you will. So yeah, it's the Holocaust for Ron DeSantis in a state that says, you know, not necessarily Ron DeSantis, but his voters said we don't want illegal immigrants here. That's not what we're going to spend state resources on, and so we don't have the resources and infrastructure allocated towards maintaining and dealing with illegal immigrants. So let's send them to an area that is a sanctuary area that said that we do have resources. We will provide legal protections. We will create infrastructure for illegal immigrants because diversity is our strength. So DeSantis taking them from a place where they weren't welcome to a place where they were welcomed. Now, whether or not Martha's Vineyard actually has that kind of resources set aside is irrelevant. They said that they did. They all advocate that they are sanctuary state status, sanctuary areas. They vote for this policy. They support this policy. So DeSantis sending illegal immigrants from a place where they were unwanted without resources to a place where they were wanted that said that they did have resources. That's the Holocaust. That's literally the Holocaust. Massachusetts activating 2.25 soldiers per illegal immigrant to drag them to a military camp. That's not the Holocaust.
Not the Holocaust. And then, you know, Biden intentionally allowing the flow of millions of immigrants into border states. That is not the Holocaust.
And I think that the State Department should prosecute those soldiers that did that. I don't think that it's legal orders to engage in human trafficking. It's definitely not legal orders to drag people to military camps, potentially to exterminate them. And I think that those 125 guardsmen should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I'm not kidding, because I think a message needs to be sent to other soldiers and guardsmen that if the Democrats are ordering you to take care of their political problems, to take out their political garbage, as NBC put it, we'll show you that in a second, that's not a legal order. You don't follow it, and it's illegal for you to do that, and you're engaging in human trafficking doing that. And there needs to be a message sent to other guardsmen and other soldiers that that's not how you conduct yourself. Democrats giving you political orders are not legal orders.
Yep. And we need some brave soldiers who are willing to say, no, I will not enforce that.
Yes. In lieu of brave soldiers saying, no, I will not follow that order, you need scared soldiers that say, well, I don't really want to follow that order because the last guy got sued and sent to Leavenworth. So it's either fear or bravery. I don't really care which one at this point, but we can't just keep having the military following, like, obedient little puppy dogs, whatever the Democrats' whims are for the day. That's got to stop. Same thing with the police. All right. So, we also had some other takes. The Holocaust was one. NBC had a really interesting take. They actually deleted this. You can see somebody tried to retweet them, and then NBC deleted their tweet. But, screenshots are forever, I guess. Let's see here. So from NBC, this tweet was up for maybe 10 minutes from my understanding before they deleted it. So NBC News. Florida Governor DeSantis sending asylum seekers to Martha's Vineyard is like, quote, me taking my trash out and just driving to different areas where I live and just throwing my trash there. A founding member of the foundation which helps refugees says. This was reported by @NBC Latino. So the Democrats are, again, this guy, this quote is from a, quote, founding member for a foundation which helps refugees. So even the people who help refugees think that they're trash. So the trash that they're talking about here is the migrants. It's the illegal immigrants. So he's saying, well, DeSantis sending us illegal immigrants is just the same thing as DeSantis sending us trash. And NBC very proudly tweeted that out and even tagged NBC Latino in it, and then promptly deleted. And as you can see here, they included a picture of the garbage, which the refuse that DeSantis deposited on their privy little island there. So that's gosh, I know that the Democrats say we call them trash, but the Democrats are actually calling them trash. Or they perhaps what was the garbage people? Is that what they are? Perhaps are they MAGA voters too? Maybe is there a difference between garbage people and trash people?
I think that they view us as different kinds of trash, where they think that we are, the enemy that needs to be destroyed, and these are just
these are like we're like actual trash, and then these are more like recycling, where they're trash, but they have potential to be turned into Democrat voters.
Yeah.
So
he's just saying the quiet part out loud. They really don't like migrants. They really do think they're dirty and dangerous or whatever that they believe. That they don't want to live near them.
Yeah, whereas, and I'm personally, I'm not gonna play the game of aren't they diverse and dreamers and all that? No, I personally these people are illegal immigrants. Their first interaction with America was to break our law, and they are coming here because they know, because of a selfish reason, they know they can get money out of us. They know that the Democrats are giving out handouts because the Democrats keep saying that. And if you ask a lot of them, a lot of these interviews with them say, well, we heard what the Democrats said. We heard that they were, giving out health care and this sort of stuff, and we want these things, and that's why they're coming. That is why they're coming, and they're coming to vote because the Democrats have invited them to do so. And so they're coming with bad intentions or selfish intentions, and their very first interaction to achieve those selfish intentions is to break the law. And many of them do go on to further break the law. So I'm not going to play. I think that this is a large amount of garbage people, because people who break the law are garbage people, in my opinion. And they need to go back to their country. And it's not because they're brown. There are plenty of brown people here who this is their country, and there's plenty of proper ways to get here. But no, if you're coming here illegally, you're a criminal. Go back to your home.
So they like to say that the GOP or Republican or conservative voters just don't like migrants, when a lot of migrants, like legal migrants, are also conservative. A lot of legal migrants are opposed to illegal immigration because they came here the right way, respecting our laws, following our laws, wanting to make a new life for themselves and wanting to do it the right way. My wife being an example of one of them, who went through all the hoops you have to jump through and all the expense it costs to come here legally. And it is, the GOP are not opposed to migrants. They're not opposed to people who want to come to America. They're opposed to people coming here, and the first thing they do is break our laws. And a lot of people who are attracted to come into our country this way are people who want to come here with nefarious intentions, like people coming here with the cartels, people trying to escape the law, people coming here when they just want to take from the system and not be a part of the community.
Yep. And after 44 hours, the migrants departed, being drug away presumably by 2 1/4 guardsmen apiece, to their new home on a military base. And here are the people of Martha's Vineyard celebrating and cheering the forcible removal of these illegal immigrants.
It's kind of crazy,
see ya. Adios, muchacho.
Praising their removal seems odd.
Keep this open for me, please, folks.
It's so surreal. It's just like the Holocaust trains. Okay. And then we'll leave this story off with this headline from CNN. Quote, "They enriched us, migrants. 44-hour visit leaves indelible mark on Martha's Vineyard." So, diversity is our strength, and it's enriching, but only in very minor moderation, apparently. 50 for 44 hours was plenty, and the mark on Martha's Vineyard will be indelible, probably in the form of grass that was sat on and trod upon too much to grow back this season, and in all of the litter and lost sweatshirts and empty water bottles that they've left behind. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Alrighty, so my closing thought on this is that the over-the-top response from the Democrats was purely not because of the 50 that arrived, but because if they didn't have an over-the-top response, that would have been just the start. And so now that DeSantis knows that they're going to just be shipping them back off to the military base, really his only choice right now is to stop doing it, or he's going to have to start sending more than 50, like maybe 500 or 1,000. And, you can be absolutely sure, can't you, Dyer, that airport is probably going to be real careful as to which planes they authorize to land there now. There's probably going to be a lot there.
Probably, yeah.
All right. What do you want me to
That's
do?
That's for the liberal violence story.
Well, why don't you put it in the liberal violence story area?
That's a good point. So is that it for the story?
Yes.
Okay. So our next story is the liberals literally calling for violence. They're itching closer and closer on the Overton window.
Yeah. So there's
just saying kill them now.
Yeah. There's a continuum of rhetoric where you kind of make euphemisms, and then you just at the end of it is you're just saying, "I order you to execute this person." There's a continuum of euphemisms before you get to that point, and the left they're racing down that continuum. Let's
really pushing it.
Let's look. So is this a video? What do you got?
No,
here?
it's just a picture showing how Biden and his administration are not trying to unite us. They call us all these things. They call us terrorists, fascists, white supremacists, racists, anti-Semites, homophobes, criminals. They call us all these things on a regular basis, and then they say, we want to destroy these people. We don't want to unite with these people. And it doesn't matter if these things they say are not true about us. That's their justification for violence against us.
Yeah. And they're kind of they've gotten pretty far down the pike with that too. So like when you've been calling somebody these very extreme things for 5 to 10 years, terrorists being a primary one, it's kind of hard to undo that. You can't just be like, "Oh, oops, like my bad. I was wrong about that. Like I'm sorry." Because like there's really no apologizing to somebody after you've called them these terrible things, and I think that they kind of know that, and so they're stuck where the only way forward is continued escalation. Because if they were to ever stop and realize like, "Oh wow, we're wrong," like that's a pretty big thing to be wrong on, right, Dyer? If you're accusing somebody of terrorism, like that's a pretty big thing to be wrong about. So,
and if you accept that you were lying or wrong about all these things, then you're accepting that you are in fact a very evil person who has harmed people, and they are due restitution.
Yeah, because being wrong about calling somebody a terrorist is, in itself a little bit terroristic. So. It's they have their cognitive dissonance is incentivizing them to continue on.
It's beyond that, man. It's not just saying, "Oh, I called him a terrorist," because when I called him a terrorist, it justifies me using the FBI to spy on them for years and violating their rights and imprisoning people.
And encouraging riots to burn their businesses down and hunt them in the streets.
Yes,
And
there were actions behind those accusations that were extremely terroristic and harmful. And if they accept that the original claims of them being these Islamists and traitors and all that stuff were wrong to begin with, then all of those actions that they previously had justified become evil acts of terrorism.
yes. And unlike some walk-away commentators who think, oh, well, if they realize they were wrong, just invite them over to our side and say, welcome to the fight. No. We said at one point, never forget. And the reason why we said never forget is because we didn't want that to happen again. And I think that should be the same thing with this is, they should be scared that if they stop, that we will hold them accountable for what they did. Because I believe that we're going to hold them accountable for what they did, regardless if they continue to win or not. Whether it's now or in the future, we will. They will be held accountable for that, and they should be scared because what they did was horrific. It really is marching us down the path that so many factious dictator nations have gone down in history. They are running us down that path, and the types of things that those regimes throughout history have done once they've gained power, like once communist China was able to run their people down the path that we're on right now and get to the end of it, and was able to commit those horrific human rights atrocities, just absolute destruction of human life, genocide, terror, and misery. For the Democrats to be attempting that, to be attempting to march us down that requires them to be held accountable. They need to be held accountable for attempted human rights violations. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. So, like we said, the rhetoric is escalating. So here is a candidate for Ohio Senate who had some, we'll let you hear it.
The Democrats aren't right on everything, and I'm willing to sit down and have conversations about how we can move out of this age of stupidity and into an age of reconciliation and reform. How do we fix all of these broken systems? Some of those answers will come from Republicans, not the extremists that we're dealing with every single day. We've got to kill and confront that movement.
Yeah. I don't think Democrats are always right. Sometimes Republicans are right, but not the MAGA Republicans. We got to kill, confront them.
Kill the Republicans that are for making America great again.
Yeah. Now, I know he said kill and confront that movement, which is still
toward the direction
political rhetoric. Still political rhetoric, but the point of this segment is not that they're doing that quite yet, though the next one is. But they're moving down which words are saying. Normally you might have heard, a year ago even, you might have heard we have to stop. We have to confront and stop that movement. But now they're using the word kill, which is not, there's connotation to the word kill that, in the sense of a movement, stopping a movement is the same thing as killing a movement. But, kill was a word I think he chose either by accident or on purpose. For a reason, either on accident because it was a Freudian slip, or on purpose because it's intentionally trying to incite fear in his opponents. Either way,
before it was getting in the face of these people. It's confront these people. Now it's kill the movement.
Yeah. Well, and Senator Mazie Hirono, she's not satisfied with killing the movement.
The word hypocrites, it doesn't even go far enough to call them out on what they're doing. This is an outright attack on women in this country. That is how I see it. That is how more and more women and those who support our right to make decisions about our own bodies, that is how we see it. And why? Because that's what's happening. Madam President, I yield the floor, but clearly, this is a literally call to arms
It's literally a call to arms against those that would say hey, can you stop killing babies? Not figuratively a call to arms, because that would be political rhetoric. But no, she's a what would the difference between a figurative call to arms and a what would literal call to arms mean, Dyer? What does that mean?
It means get your weapons and go attack the target.
Okay, so
or defend the base.
Not a figurative weapon, right? Not like a thought weapon.
No.
Like an actual
It means violence.
What's an arm? It's like
a weapon.
What's a weapon?
So a gun or a knife.
That's the word I was looking for. Was a gun. So yeah, she's calling for people to go pick up guns, literally, in defense of abortion, which I guess goes to show how badly they like abortion. So yeah, the what?
So sorry. In the military, you don't refer to your rifle as a gun. You refer to it as a weapon, because it's also, you can use it in other ways other than shooting someone. I was just laughing at myself that I thought I used the correct word.
You did, but I was looking for I think weapon's a euphemism for gun. I know it has additional meanings, but I wanted the gun is what I'm looking for, because that's what she said, is call to arms. The right to keep and bear arms is not about sticks and stuff. It's about guns. Arms are guns. Your gun may be a weapon, but arms are guns. So you're wrong, Dyer. An arm is a gun, but a weapon is not necessarily a gun. It's like bulls and steers. You know that one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move forward.
I think we can all agree that you're wrong and I'm right. And yes, we will just proceed forward with that. The last segment we have here is trains, which I didn't do. I didn't write anything for it.
It has a whole bunch of things that Fox wants to talk about related to trains. He's got some special knowledge on trains.
I do.
You probably have to listen to the story about all the trains he's run next week, right?
I would say probably, because I do have to get going. So we'll find out about trains and where those trains run possibly next week. We'll see.
All right. It's been a great show, guys. Thank you very much. Dire Wolf out.